Alright guys, so we're on our next fairy tale, which is one you probably have heard before. It's Snow White meets the Huntsman, which is taken from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So as we read this, before we read this, I'm going to have you quickly scan it and look for genre features of a fairy tale. So remember, what makes it a fairy tale? So let's look at it quickly. So let me zoom out so you can see. So look at those words, look at those pictures. I notice here it looks like there's a magical mirror, so magic's generally part of a fairy tale. Look in, I see there's a castle, so there's probably royalty. See the word queen, so that goes with that royalty part. There's an animal, so there's a talking animal. I see this maybe is a helper or not. I see this is probably our main character. So I see all these things here. Now, a fairy tale, remember, they're stories for children. They have elements of magic, and there's typically a clear good and a clear bad guy. So, as we're reading this, I want you to notice what you think the good guy is and the bad guy is. The good guys are and the bad guys are. Maybe there's more than one. So, let's head to this first part right here. So, Snow White meets the Huntsman. An excerpt from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs by the Brothers Grimm. Once upon a time in midwinter, when the snowflakes were falling like feathers from heaven, a queen sat sewing at her window. The window had a frame of black ebony wood. As she sewed, she looked up at the snow and pricked her finger with her needle. 3 drops, ooh, there's that magical number 3. 3 drops of blood fell into the snow. The red on the white looked so beautiful that she thought to herself, if only I had a child as white as snow, as red as blood, and as black as the wood in the spring. So, the first few sentences here, they kind of set the scene for me by telling me when and where it's taking place. Then I come to the first event. The queen looks up. It doesn't seem that important, but the next event does. She pricks her finger. I will label this event with number 1, as shown on the inside front. So, I'm going to label this number 1 for us. This first event is kind of the first major thing that happened. She pricks her finger. So let's underline that. Oops, not underline. We're going to label that as number 1. Then I see another event that I think is important. 3 drops of blood fall on the snow. I'll label this part with the number 2. That's going to be, I think, my next important part. Finally, I see a third important event. The queen wishes for a daughter as beautiful as the blood on the snow. Sounds kind of weird to me, but it's important to our story. So I'm going to put that down here. If only I had a child as white as snow. So that's my third kind of important event. So, based on my knowledge of the story of Snow White, I think this part is important. It's key event number 3. So the vivid description of this paragraph helped me visualize the scene. That snow, the frame of the wood mirror, and the blood is really getting those colors in my head. So I can clearly imagine the red blood on this white snow in that black window frame. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do a summary for us. I'm going to type this in the side. I can summarize these key events. So what will it look like? This is what I'm going to type. A queen pricks her finger and sees blood on the snow. She thinks it is beautiful and wishes for a daughter as pretty as it. So I'm going to keep reading this story, and I'm going to continue adding what I think are important events. So my next one that I'll add is a 4. So I'm going to read paragraph 2 and see if there's any key event in this part. Alright? Soon afterward, the queen had a little daughter who was as white as snow, as red as blood, as black as ebony wood. Therefore they called her Little Snow White. Sadly, as soon as the child was born, the queen died. So, that's a kind of depressing story. So, let's get on with our next part. So I think my next part is this. The daughter was born. And then another key event, though, is this part right here. The queen died. So the daughter's born, the queen died. So I think there's 2 key events in this part. So let's go on to this next part. So we have this picture here from a play showing us Snow White. So let's go to number 3 now. A year later, the king took himself another wife. She was a beautiful woman, and she was proud and arrogant. So I think this is number 6, another event. He takes a wife. She could not stand it if anyone might surpass her beauty. The queen had a magic mirror. Every morning she stood before it, looked at herself, and said, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who in this land is fairest of all?" To this the mirror answered, "You, my queen, are fairest of all." Then she was satisfied, for she knew that the mirror spoke the truth. So I'm going to put this at number 7. Talking to the mirror, knowing that the mirror is speaking the truth. Paragraph 9 now. Snow White grew up and became ever more beautiful. When she was 7 years old, she was as beautiful as the light of day, even more beautiful than the queen herself. So that's not quite a main event. They're just describing Snow White right now. So I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to see if there's anything else. But before I do, I want to write over here what is going to happen in this section. So I'm going to summarize it. So my summary is going to be this. The king marries, I was going to put takes another wife, but marries sounds better. Marries another lady after a year who is vain. I like that word. That means she only thinks about herself. She asks a magical mirror who is the fairest, or I'm going to put a different word in there, who is the most beautiful in the country. The mirror always says she is. So that's my summary right here. It kind of sums up of these first 2 events that have happened. Event 6 and Event 7. Alright, so let's head on to our next page now. So one day, when the queen asked her mirror, "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who in this land is fairest of all?" it answered, "You, my queen, are fair, it is true, but Snow White is 1,000 times fairer than you." So, that's what I think kind of an important part is going to be. So I'm going to put that here. It's reminding the queen that now she is not the fairest. So I'm going to put this as number 8. The queen took fright and turned yellow and green with envy. So I'm going to put a 9 here. So say the queen now has this action. She's kind of upset. She's jealous. From that hour on, whenever she looked at Snow White, and her heart turned over inside her body, so great was her hatred for the girl. The envy and pride grew ever greater, like a weed in her heart, until she had no peace day and night. So I'm going to put a 10 here, saying that it's consuming all of her thoughts. Then she summoned a huntsman and said to him, "Take Snow White out into the woods. I never want to see her again. Kill her, and as proof that she is dead, bring her lungs and her liver back." Ooh, kind of a more vicious one than we've seen in that Disney movie. I'm going to put this as 11. That summoning the huntsman is an action she takes. And then 12, even though it's not an action yet, she's speaking and she's saying what she wants done. So I think that's kind of important. She's saying she wants Snow White dead. So I'm going to put that in my part over here for my summary. So let's get started. And I'm going to use for this one my dictation function. So the mirror one day says that the queen is not the most beautiful in the land, but rather Snow White, period. The queen gets so jealous that she hires a huntsman to kill Snow White and bring back her lungs and liver as proof that she is dead, period. Man, I am glad that does not happen in the actual Snow White story, because I probably wouldn't like it that much. So notice how my summary matches each of these points. It talks about the mirror saying Snow White's the most beautiful. It talks about how she is jealous and that she hires that huntsman. So let's go on to paragraph 18 now. So I'm now looking for, are there any other events or any other things in here that are key events? The huntsman obeyed and took Snow White into the woods. He took out his hunting knife and was about to stab it into her innocent heart when the girl began to cry, saying, "Oh dear huntsman, let me live. I will run into the wild woods and never come back. Because she's so beautiful, the huntsman took pity on her and said, "Run away, you poor child." He thought, the wild animals will soon devour you anyway. So he's thinking these animals are going to kill her anyway, so my job will be done. But still, it was as if a stone had fallen from his heart, for he would not have to kill her. Just then a young boar came running by. The huntsman killed it, cut out its lungs and liver, and took them back to the queen as proof of Snow White's death. The cook had to boil them with salt, and the wicked woman ate them, supposing she had eaten Snow White's lungs and liver. So, this ending part's way different than her story. It's really showing us that this queen is really a vicious, really an evil villain in this story. So it's not just that she made Snow White fall asleep, like in that Disney movie, but they're showing over and over that, yeah, she wants Snow White to unfortunately be dead. So I'm going to see, was there anything in here that was a key event? Well, I have this part right here, when he obeyed and went into the woods, so I'm going to put that as a 13, because it's showing that he's following the queen. But then, this is a key event too, where Snow White's crying and begging. So I'm going to put that also, because that's what changes her heart. This is an important part though. Number 15, this whole thing is just one paragraph, or one sentence long for the paragraph. But it's showing us that the huntsman lets her live. And then, this last part right here, the huntsman killing that boar as proof that he killed Snow White. And then we also have this part right here with the cook's going to boil and eat them for the queen. That's another main event. Even if it's kind of gross, it really is our main event. So now what I want to do is I want to put this as a summary. So I'm going to put, this is my summary. The queen asks the huntsman to take Snow White into the woods and kill her. Snow White begs for her life and the huntsman lets her go. Instead, he kills a boar and brings the animals lungs and liver to the queen, who believes they are Snow White, and eats them. Oh, yeah. So, let's get started now, guys. So I'm just going to change that to 16, and it doesn't quite fit, so I'm going to change it to 14. Alright, guys. And that is it for this one.